Hey guys, we're back from our long journey. We did almost 9,000 miles on our summer trip this year, and we had a couple of issues. We had a couple of tire issues. They were really more of rims, and we did some rough roads this summer, so I ended up having a couple of cracked rims where they started to leak out. But we had a little more severe problem develop on the way back home, and it's one of these issues that I don't see a lot of videos about, but if you go down the road you see this on campers from time to time, on travel trailers especially, but it can happen to a fifth wheel. If you have any kind of rubber roof, EDPM, whatever, it can cause an issue for you. So we came down out of the Rocky Mountains into eastern Colorado, and we had a big temperature change. And I'm quite sure that this had something to do with it. We went from real cool temperatures to 103, 104 degree weather pretty quick. And I looked back in the rearview mirror and I saw a bubble forming on the roof of the camper. And so that small bubble ended up turning into a larger bubble. And now I've got some roof separation where the rubber membrane has actually separated from the plywood. It's come unglued, and I'm not sure if it's because of the heat or if it's a glue or maybe a construction of the unit issue whenever it was built. But I got a couple materials here, and I'm going to do a repair myself because it's going to cost about $2,000 or more for the RV place to do this for me. And if I know how to do something, I'm going to do it myself. So one of the things I had to do was find the right adhesive for this. And we have some Dicor products, bonding adhesive 901BA, and I couldn't find a quart, so I found a gallon. I don't really need that much, but it is what it is. Butyl tape. I have both black and gray colored butyl tape. This is the tape that is it's a putty tape is what it is, and it waterproofs where your screws are, where your drip ridges are on the side of the camper, and that's going to keep everything nice and waterproof. I do have some repair tape, Eternabond. I bought the 5-inch, and I have a little bit of 2-inch, and this 2-inch came in quite handy. This is something I keep in my toolkit all the time whenever we're camping, because you never know when you may have an issue with a roof, and you sure don't want water to get into the camper itself. One of the other necessaries is this Dicor lap sealant, self-leveling. You can't ever have enough of this. I bought quite a few tubes so I can repair the front area where all of this cinches down. It tightens up. I've already removed one of the pieces on the top to try to make kind of a temporary repair, and it worked okay. But now that we're home, I need to take care of this issue before it pulls more rubber roofing off, or worse, we end up having a leak. So right here's the issue. You can actually see on the roof here where the rubber membrane has come loose. I actually just sealed this with Dicor before we left on our trip this summer back in May, and it's July. And unfortunately, the glue came undone here, and it's created an issue all the way across. So this bubble has formed all the way across the front, and it's come back about 40 to 48 inches, 40 to 42 inches back across the roof of the camper. And it's a severe issue to me. Luckily, I don't have any tears. And what I've done is a temporary repair. You can see some tape right here. I just pulled the caulk off while we were traveling to check everything to make sure everything looked good underneath. I did not see any water getting in, but once I pull the roof off, I'll be able to tell a little bit more. So one of the first steps here is we're gonna have to get this drip rail off of the side. And usually you have some kind of plastic in here that kind of gives you some protection from water. But it also covers the screw channel here, and all of that works together to keep water out of your camper. We also have our little drip area here, our drainage area. And so we're gonna have to remove this piece to be able to get to the membrane to be able to pull it back from the plywood to reapply glue. Hopefully we don't have any serious issues underneath, but we'll see. And so we'll start by unscrewing this area. There's usually a screw at the very front, the very end of the channel. It holds this plastic in place, and then underneath there will be more screws that hold the piece of metal channel in place. So I've switched over to the other side of the camper. I've undone the screws here. I've loosened all of these. I've actually pulled up the front drip edge so I can get to the membrane, because your membrane actually is slidden. I know that's not proper English. Membrane's actually placed underneath your aluminum from the front, and so it's a little bit tough to get to that particular area, and so you do have to remove part of this drip edge right here. And all of this is pretty easy to put back together. We've got our butyl tape, which is going to seal up really nicely, and it's going to make all this waterproof once we're done. But we do have to pry off the strip edge right here, and it can be a little bit of work to pry it off, so it's nice to go slow if you have a pry bar. Real easy to kind of pry away, and you just work it away slowly. Don't rush. You know, if you start this job and can't finish, just have a tarp ready. Otherwise, you can kind of see all of this, the butyl tape is coming off. And I'm okay with that butyl tape there. I'm not gonna clean all of it off, but I'm gonna get it nice and smooth, so when I do seal this back up, it looks good. So last night I was able to get the drip rails undone. I am trying to avoid taking the drip rail off on the awning side, and I'm hoping I can get enough glue under without having to take the whole awning off today. So now the process, after pulling the membrane back from underneath the aluminum cap, and I really recommend that you take a little extra time and be real careful with that. Just because there's a section of membrane that goes up underneath the aluminum cap that it's a little hard to grab onto and pull backwards. So now we're gonna pull back this rubber membrane. So far so good. It looks like I don't have any water damage up here on the front, which is awesome. Just have to re-glue this bubble and then make sure I seal everything else back up. So I've got some flashing tape here that I'm going to be using on the sides. Roof looks really good. I've got the membrane pulled back far enough that I can get everything glued that came undone. And so now I'm just going to take this flashing tape and put it down along the edge just to ensure that we don't have any leaks in the future. It had duct tape. I guess that's how they, in the system of economies, that RVs are made very quickly and at very little cost. I'm going to use some flashing tape since I have it. Flashing tape is just like any door, window tape, anything of that sort. I do like the aluminum type flashing tape. I think it's a little better made. But we'll put it under here. We'll get just enough to go over the side. And that way everything's nice and sealed. And no worries. now I'm in the process of actually putting my adhesive out. And it is kind of sunny today, so I need to kind of work quick, get all of this done. I want to make sure I have a good layer. And once I'm done with the adhesive, we're going to roll out the mat. This Dicor 901BA does not require any waiting time for you to put out the membrane. And so we'll get on that as fast as we can. Now what I'm doing is I've got my sheet metal screwed back to the frame. There is a block of wood in there. I believe it's two 2x4s that run across the header and above the bedroom area here. And this is where the membrane meets the aluminum on the front of the trailer. And because that is a sensitive area, I've used some extra butyl tape on the inside, on top. Now I'm going to run the Eternabond tape across the entire thing before I screw it all back down with the channel that holds everything down. I'll then caulk everything with Dicor, and hopefully everything looks just like new. All right, so day 3 of our roofing adventure here, and gotten the roof down. Last night I was able to get this layer of Dicor self-leveling sealant. I'm gonna need to touch up just a couple of places. It is kind of hot and humid, so I think that probably affected some of the settling there. And I need to finish up along the sides here. I'm going to run some non-leveling Dicor along the edge of the drip rail and the roof, just to keep out any water that might be tempted to go down in here. On the corners, I'm going to make sure I seal these up just a little bit better. And I need to run a strip of covering back over the drip rail here, over the screws inside of this rail. You put some plastic in, and it's a material that at least shields those screw holes from getting water in there, and I do think that that is a worthwhile piece of preventative maintenance. So things are looking pretty good after day 3. I was a little bit worried about what the roof might look like, but so far so good. So this is the final product after the tear off, and we have, I think, pretty good coverage for the glue. It's going to take a couple of days for this Dicor glue to really cure well. I do have a couple of ridges on the right side, and that was kind of a tough area to get to. But we'll see how that does. I think I've got enough adhesion everywhere else that that's not going to cause a problem. And you see campers with wrinkles in the roof anyway. You know, some of these wrinkles are actually caused from when I pulled up the membrane. It pulled up pieces of OSB wood, which OSB is a substandard wood I think for an RV. I think they should use something a little bit better quality on the top, but we all know in the industry and the mass production that it's the easy thing to go to and it's cheap, so that's what they use. This repair took me 3 days. I only worked a couple hours each day, and it is something that's manageable. It would have been nice to maybe have a second set of hands, and I could have been done a little bit quicker, but it is something you can tackle if you have any skills, carpentry skills, or just kind of general construction skills. It's real important that you get your layers of Dicor back on here, the self-leveling. I know it might look a little goopy here and there, but that is just how it's going to be, and that is self-leveling. Heat probably had a little to do with that as it settled, and also a little bit of moisture. The humidity is terrible here in South Carolina during the summertime, but so far so good. If we look down here, I replaced this cover that goes over your screw heads, and I don't know, that tape I ended up getting at Gander Outdoors. Not very expensive, easy to get back in there. Just takes a little bit of time. I did run some silicone down here on my drain, and I've caulked really heavy up here on the top. Just anywhere you think you could get a leak, I would caulk really heavy. So that's what I've done. So hopefully this video will help some of you guys out. I don't see a lot of videos on YouTube about repairing a roof whenever you have a bubble, and I don't know the scientific name behind that. It's the bubble to me. But because I've already resealed this, I may go back and put a second coat on. But I did the sealant back in the spring, and it looks pretty good, and I tried to be real careful as I walked on it and make sure I didn't get any punctures, but I may run back over it with one more coating, just in case there might be a little pinhole somewhere, a piece of sand or a piece of wood, or maybe a screw head or a screw tip that could have gone through the membrane somewhere. Might not be a bad idea to do that. So hopefully this helped you out in seeing how to fix a roof, repair a roof, and it's not that hard, just takes a little bit of work. Thanks for watching.